is out of control. Out of control.
Are they just beating up some random guy? It has been an amazing win for anyone who missed it. Zohran Mamdani, he won the Democratic primary for New York mayor. And I know it's crazy. If you actually run on like a populist position and try and actively impact the people who live there in a positive way, you become a very likable candidate. I know, crazy. This is what people were saying before and after. Let's roll the Hogwatch tapes.
Scared, and I'm hearing from various people here in New York, and they're concerned about their safety living here with a Muslim mayor, and that's the problem.
Highly probable.
See how she said living here with a Muslim mayor? I think this is the craziest, most racist thing I've ever seen.
Hold on.
They shouldn't.
Because of
Hold on.
Hold on. We talked about this yesterday, and since you brought it up, might as well bring it up again. The idea that because he is Muslim, he is a threat to Jewish New Yorkers, is that really what you're saying?
No, it's because of his anti-Israel rhetoric that he's been putting out.
But what does that have to do with him being Muslim? I think this is where things, you can go after his policies, but what does that have to do with his faith?
It's not about his faith. It's because he is perpetuating.
Then why did you mention that he's Muslim?
This anti-Israeli rhetoric, and New York.
Then why didn't you bring up that he's anti-Israeli? Instead, first of all, he said he believes Israel has a right to exist as a state with equal rights for Palestinians. So I don't know what the fuck unless you're saying you're anti-Israeli for thinking Palestinians should have equal rights, which is fucking crazy, by the way. That is a crazy thing to say. And also, what does that have to do with him being Muslim? He can have that opinion without being Muslim.
Workers are hearing it and they're scared. That's what I'm hearing back from friends.
He's aimed at that beat. He's aimed at that
in that beat.
He's aimed at a lot of that beat.
There are Jewish people that have anti-Israeli opinions. There are white people that have anti-Israeli opinions. There are black people that have anti-Israeli opinions. It is not necessarily required for him to be Muslim.
But he did the interview with Mehdi Hassan, and he aimed at Bibi, not necessarily.
I think, but Abby, he's Muslim. Who cares? That's not the point here. His policies are the problem.
It's like, I'm sorry, but I stand by the statement that Islamophobia in the U.S. is the most accepted form of bigotry. The fact that someone can say this on air and it's fine, and like you don't have to worry about like losing your job for saying something like if you make, obviously there's racism in this country, an insane amount of racism towards, like Black Americans, towards Asian Americans, towards Jewish people, towards every group of people. Again, there is bigotry, obviously. But if she got on and said, well, I think people would be afraid of Eric Adams. I think a lot of people are afraid of Eric Adams, being a black mayor. She would have to be worried about losing her job for saying that. Like in 2025 on CNN, but Islamophobia, go for it. Go crazy, dude. Go crazy. Islamophobia, go insane. You're just asking questions. To be fair, yeah, transphobia is up there as well. I think the problem with transphobia is that a lot more people don't care and a lot more people are apathetic. With Islamophobia, people just they agree with her. So they don't care. This guy? Bye-bye, little Muhammad. If you lie on your N-400 naturalization forms, you're going home. Which I said, post 9/11 levels of racism are back in a big way. I've also really been enjoying Fox advertising Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani's platform. Housing, freeze the rent. Build affordable housing. Affordability, creating city-owned grocery stores, fare-free buses. Labor, raising the minimum wage to $30 by 2030. Trump-proofing New York City and ICE cooperation. LGBTQIA protections, expanding and protecting gender-affirming care citywide, making New York City an LGBTQIA plus sanctuary city. I'm so scared. I'm terrified of these policies. Whoa. Is this supposed to make me like him less? Because it doesn't make me like him less. It's this meme. A vote for Bart is a vote for anarchy. They're advertising the best parts of his policies and his positions. I think Zohran's campaign did a lot of really amazing things. Their media team was amazing. It was really, really, really good. And the focus on policy was really good. But this is also why people on the left, Democrats, shouldn't be afraid of embracing extremist positions like free childcare, public grocery stores, because you want to refocus the conversation around your policies. You want to fight Republicans on your turf versus the Kamala strategy of, yeah, immigration is a problem, and yeah, we definitely should do something about immigration. Well, I'm not gonna do anything as extreme as Trump is, even though I agree that it's a problem for some bizarre fucking reason. Versus Mamdani's campaign of, yeah, fight me on public grocery stores. Yeah, fight me on $30 minimum wage. Okay, yeah, fight me on rent freeze. Fight me on building affordable housing. Please, those are winning positions, and you can defend those positions. New York doesn't go for Republican mayors. He would only lose if, like, Cuomo got an insane amount of funding, changed to independent. I don't even know if he still can do that, and changed the course of action. The Republican nominee for New York City mayor.
If you divide 53 million by 500, that's a $106,000 debit card. Not a bad deal. I don't think they're giving them to vets that are homeless in New York City. Not that I've heard, Curtis.
In fact, our guys have just taken down one of the migrant guys right here on the corner, 42nd and 7th, while all this
Can you
is
pan the camera?
They've taken over. They've taken over. You'd like the camera over there if at all possible.
What did he say?
Oh, you got your key open, guys.
He is out of control. Out of control.
Are they just beating up some random guy?
There. All right. Now, Eric Adams often complains he's getting no support from the federal government to help him with the surge of Joe Biden's unvetted illegals in New York. And that could be because of the so-called border czar is a little distracted right now. According to a report, Vice President Harris has now suddenly, quote, found her footing. And she's now apparently getting ready for a future presidential run of her own in 2028. According to the Daily Mail, she campaigned in South Carolina last week, visited.
What the fuck is this fucking clip? Oh my God. Oh my God. These posts have been insane. Quote, the Jews have been stripped of their synagogues and homes. They wander the streets broken and barefoot, end quote, from this fucking psychopath on Twitter. And there's a graphic of, like, New York City in decay. And it says, New York City has fallen. It's the most racist, absurd, unhinged thing a Democrat senator not named Fetterman has said in a long time. Absolutely revolting, and just in a just world, she would be forced to resign.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call and question. I wanted to ask two very pertinent questions about the threats facing the Jewish community, unfortunately, from Zohran Mamdani. There was a bill that I was reading about that, unfortunately, he wants to target synagogues and Jewish institutions which donate to nonprofits, which are medical institutions like United Hatzalah and Magan David Adam, which is like the Jewish Red Cross. So how do we make sure that Jewish institutions are protected from his plans to punish and fine our institutions which fundraise these medical nonprofits, which do work both here in the United States and in Israel and other countries in the world? And also, how can we hold Mr. Mamdani accountable for his
Just a quick sidebar. Senator Kristen Gillibrand has received $925,373. More now, potentially over that amount, considering that it's this was from January. Nearly $1 million from AIPAC.
Well, the caller is exactly the New York constituents that I've spoken to that are alarmed. They are alarmed by past public statements. They are alarmed by past positions, particularly references to global jihad. This is a very serious issue because people that glorify the slaughter of Jews create fear in our communities. The global intifada is a statement that means destroy Israel and kill all the Jews. So these are the kinds of things that if Mr. Mamdani is elected our mayor, we'll need to assure all New Yorkers that he will protect all Jews and protect houses of worship and protect funding for not-for-profits that meet the needs of these communities. Those are the things he'll have to do as our mayor.
Dude, these fucking disingenuous pieces of shit, they love, love, love to ignore Jewish people that they don't like. Like he was, they what's the term, he crossed endorsed with one of the most popular Jewish politicians in New York.
I just feel compelled to say we can find no evidence that he has supported Hamas or has supported violent jihad, as that caller was asserting. Can you?
Again, Brian, I don't have all the data and information, and I've never sat down with Mr. Mamdani. So I've asked to have that meeting. I'm going to have that meeting. We will talk through all these things. He can tell me his views of the world, and I can learn them firsthand. I think the reference that I had read was global intifada specifically.
What a fucking crazy message, dude. Holy shit. Well, my sources, some guy called in and said he's afraid about the Jews being harmed in New York because there's a Muslim potential mayor.
Which has very serious meanings that are violent and destructive. So,
which he says, and I pressed him on this on the show on Monday, but which he says are not calls for violence because intifada is a much broader term.
By the way, these people, these Gillibrands of the world and Fettermans of the world and Cuomos of the world, everyone that's trying to paint him. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Charlie Kirk, everyone who's trying to paint him as like an extremist because he happens to be Muslim, besides it being unbelievably Islamophobic, like holy shit. It's also very telling. One of the only negative statements that Zohran has said has been that he would arrest Netanyahu if Netanyahu visited New York if elected mayor. That he would work with the ICC for the arrest warrant, which has nothing to do with Jewish people. Israeli people don't even like Netanyahu. Now, they don't like Netanyahu because they don't think he's not going far enough and not trying to actually save the hostages because he's not. But Zohran Mamdani's most extreme state, his most extreme position is that he would try and uphold international law and international court law. That's the crazy anti-Semitism.
Also clarify, or he was clarifying that he never said globalize the intifada. He was asked in an interview if he would denounce the phrase globalize the intifada. And then that led to this kind of conversation, that you were just referring to, but that he was never out there saying globalize the intifada. He was asked about other people who used it. So just to be precise about what happened there. Yes?
Well, as a leader of a city as diverse as New York City with 8 million people, as the largest Jewish population in the country, he should denounce it. And that's it, period. And you can't celebrate it, you can't value it, you can't lift it up. And that is the challenge that Jewish New Yorkers have had, certainly since October 6th. October 7th. It is exactly what they have felt. It is why Jewish students in our universities have felt unsafe. It is why Jewish students have felt that their schools did not have their backs and cared about them or their learning, because the people doing these protests use words that have meanings that are far more violent and horrific than they may have intended. But when you hear things like intifada, when you hear things like jihad, when you hear from the river to the sea, it is received as slaughter the Jews and destroy Israel. Period. It's how it's received. And if you talk to any group,
the indignant tone when he didn't even, where he hasn't even said he's like pro intifada, that he hasn't said any of these things, and she's just like, okay, I know I'm imagining this, but like he's being anti-Semitic.
You talk to our LGBTQ community, you talk to our Black community, you talk to our Hispanic community. There are words and there are imagery and there are things that are said that they will hear it and feel it as a dagger to their throat. And so if you want to be a leader, you have to recognize how these things are felt and received, and saying there should be no word police is irresponsible.
Damn, no wonder AIPAC gives her money. She's fucking pulling out the white woman tears, dude. She's down to ult on nothing. Nothing has even happened yet. And she's like, okay, I'll ult. This is fine. I want to talk about this really quickly. I've seen so many people talking about the fucking public grocery stores. I think I saw was it a Charlie Kirk? No, I think it was Matt Walsh saying, Zohran wants to turn your grocery store into the DMV. And it's like, no, you fucking idiot. First of all, there's no substitute to the DMV. You have to use the DMV. A public grocery store has substitutes. If you don't like it, don't use it. He's not saying you can only have public grocery stores. He's trying to test out, like other states and countries have tested out, public government-owned supermarkets. I know government-owned liquor stores generate an insane amount of profit for states. And it's been tested in like 17 states and it works really well. This is like USPS. Having USPS around helps subsidize mailing fees for people who live in bumfuck nowhere. It is good. And it helps bring the price down and the cost down for companies like FedEx and UPS. So FedEx and UPS still exist. You don't want the government mail, you don't want the government post office, that's fine. You don't have to. You can go to FedEx, you can go to UPS, you don't have to go to USPS. But USPS helps bring the costs down because it provides an alternative for the economic monopoly or like the mailing monopoly. It's the same thing here. If people can go to the publicly owned grocery store and get eggs for $1, or they can go to like the local supermarket and get eggs for $4. Guess what? The local supermarket has to start finding a way to lower their prices, and they have to stop price gouging. Providing those alternatives makes the system better for everybody because it forces private companies to reduce their costs as well. Not to mention a state with, or like even a city with the GDP that New York City has, you have so much leverage with like economies of scale. You can buy like entire fucking boatloads of like eggs or fruit or whatever. This is a major problem. New York City has tested out a lot of things. I read up on this because this is one of the most interesting economic developments over the past like year, I would say. Personally, maybe I'm just economic dork on this one, but grocery stores in New York, or grocery stores anywhere, you have leverage if you can buy more. That's why Walmart stuff is so cheap. That's why Target stuff is so cheap. One of the things that they've tried to test, because one of the primary goals is stopping food deserts. Food deserts just being areas where the only food that you can get for the next couple miles, it's just from like bodegas or like little convenience stores. And the convenience stores only have like junk food, candy, and not really anything nutritious, right? And so the goal is, or one of the things that has been tested in New York City was providing subsidies and not forcing, but incentivizing those smaller stores to start selling produce. Unfortunately, a tiny little bodega isn't going to be able to sell cheap tomatoes and bananas and stuff, right? Because they are buying such a small amount, they have to buy them at a premium. The state of New York City being able to implement or like create like 10 outposts or 20 outposts for public grocery stores. They can buy out like 5,000 bananas in like a day or something and actually put all these in. So they get lower costs. This is one of the reasons why implementing produce or like subsidizing produce in bodegas didn't really work as well as they would have liked it. Because again, there's just a lot less bargaining power for these tiny stores. And because the food is perishable, they're incentivized to not do that, right? So public grocery stores are like one of the best policies that Zohran is currently running on. It's actually amazing. Let me let the clip play. And this is the other really cool thing. His media team just like did a really good job of explaining these concepts or summarizing these concepts in like TikTok format.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores.
And so this is another thing, by the way, that he explains really well, and it's very palatable to the average non-political person. Well, how are you going to fund it in your socialist nightmare? There's already subsidies that go towards grocery stores, private, for-profit grocery stores. And guess what? Of course, they're going to still try and pocket as much money as they can. So of course, they're going to price gouge. If you pull away some of the money we're already giving to these supermarkets and instead redirect it towards public grocery stores, the money is already being spent. Why not spend it and be able to confirm and ensure that the price of goods will stay down? Because there's no way, like once you give the government subsidy to like Elon Musk, why the fuck would he keep prices low, right? Why would that fucking welfare queen keep prices low? If you give the money to like Publix or you give the money to like Whole Foods or whatever, what is incentivizing them to keep prices low? Fucking nothing. If you take the money away from them and you redirect all of that into a public grocery store that's primary goal is to try and end food deserts, to try and provide groceries at a fair price to the New York City residents that live in that region or that city or that zip code or whatever, guess what? You can confirm that they'll keep prices low because it's a publicly owned service. It's such a common sense policy. It's obscene that I've seen so many people be like, if you believe in this, you're obviously an idiot. And they have no sources on. They're like, it's been done before, I think. And it didn't work, I think. It's like, what the fuck? Huh?
Supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
Yeah, this is a really cool policy. This is the one thing I'm an economics nerd about, producing financial incentives for people to engage in public goods. Like transport is a really cool one where with enough polling and pulling enough stats, you can build like bus stops and you can build like train stops at the right distance that the majority of people will use them. You can maximize the number of people that are using them for like the least cost to the city or the state. It's so cool. Oh my God. Yeah, I love, this is the one thing I'm an economics nerd about. Providing public goods to people via economics is so cool. But anywho, please comment, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Please like the video. Times 100, please do that. It takes 2 seconds.